We are back with Season 2 of the Talk Shop Podcast. My guest at this time is my good friend, Bay Area actor Rafael Musni. He has been in multiple stage shows such as The Resistable Rise of Arturo Ui, directed by Patricia Miller, where he played the lead character Arturo Ui. The musical Chicago, directed by Deborah Shaw, as the lead singer along with his wife Charlotte, and American Night, the Ballad of Juan Jose by Richard Montoya, also directed by Patricia Miller, which we both were in. And he was even in a commercial spot for Intel HP, which is linked in the description below. Please note that this interview was conducted in the latter half of 2023. Enjoy. Welcome back to the Talk Shop Podcast, and with me I have my guest at this time and good friend, Rafael Musni. How's it going, man?
Hello, how are you, Richie?
I'm good. So thanks for agreeing to do this and putting aside time.
Absolutely. No, I was excited to hear that someone's creating something. Actors want to act, but we can't do a darn thing until someone creates something to act in.
That's true. Thanks. So, one of the reasons I wanted to bring you onto the podcast is because you're very well known and we've known each other for years, and we worked with each other a bunch of times. You are very well known for your ability as an actor, and the one thing that is very clear and should be clear to anybody trying to get a voiceover or anything having to do with acting is priority.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So,
It's the structure of acting that from which outflows many other kinds of performance.
agreed, definitely, and we're seeing it in all kinds of media today, from animation, anime, video games, that good acting prowess along with good directing, script writing, and a few other things, it takes priority. And the one thing I wanted to really emphasize, along with somebody who actually has the ability for good acting, is how important this is. So we've done shows. I think the first show we did was we met at City College, and here in San Francisco, and then at the same time I was studying to be an actor. But then my first show, which was with our director Patricia Miller, was I think it was The Resistable Rise of Arturo Ui.
Yes. Heady days, heady days.
That was man, that was my first introduction to the stage, and then at the same time you were playing the primary main character. So we went through that. I learned so much from you. That's right. One of the biggest tips you taught me is I'm not so much thinking about how the project's going versus what can I give to make the project better.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that it just that advice has still helped me. So other than that, before we dive into all the acting and talking shop, tell us about yourself. What is it that you do as an actor and have done before?
Well, what is that I do as an actor? I try to think of myself as a character actor, right? Someone who approaches a character that's already been created, and it's my job to sort of get inside that character that the writers created, and that character has a function. I don't want to say it's just their comic relief or the prime mover, but I mean a function in the story that we are telling. So maybe he's the protagonist, and he has to carry the emotions of the viewers along with him and sort of tell the story. Like, if you were here, how would you feel if someone were trying to attack you or kill you, or get your power? Arturo Ui is the one of the perfect examples, because when I approached that character, when I heard about the character, I was a little concerned that the character is fairly evil, right? He's fairly evil. And I remember, to my first acting instructor, who was Susan Jackson, and in one of her first coachings of a piece that I was doing in her class, she
Right.
said to me, "Do not judge your character."
Mm-hmm.
And she probably said a bunch of other things around that, but that's the phrase that caught my attention. I mean, we can cheer for our characters when we're watching a movie or a play, um, or we can not like them, or be ambiguous. But as an actor, you have to approach your character as if they are a full and complete being, and they are justified in their manner of being, in their strategies for survival. So, in the example of Arturo Ui, I try to be in his character as if, um, and the script guides you in that, he's a small time criminal and he longs for greatness. He wants to be seen as powerful. He wants to be powerful. And he's annoyed that he has to hang out with these terrible other criminals who are just fighting with themselves or, playing around. They're not serious about what they're doing. And he wants to find a way to achieve, total power, total dominance over all. And that gave me the access to enter that character. And from then, everything kind of moved along. So, as that character had to change, he had to change his persona, the way he spoke in the course of that play to become a great leader and to be inspiring, but also to be menacing and threatening. And whereas before he was content to just use guns and physical force, now he has to use subterfuge, and he has to align the business people with the politicians, and he has to manipulate them and the situation, and of course the individual desires of individual people, for power and wealth, because they want to conserve their power and wealth. They don't like Arturo Ui. They don't like what he's doing, but he knows that he can manipulate them. So that access of what is the character trying to do, what does the character feel? He feels powerless, and even though he's rising in power, he's always coming from the sense of, I don't have enough power. So what would the character do and feel then, and how would he do it, and how would he interact with other people that in that moment? And that I often find is the most useful thing in any scene building, or moment with an actor, with another actor, because I always like to think of acting as sharing the stage with another person, because you get more out of the scene, and I believe the audience gets more when you are sharing the stage with that other actor. You're doing your lines, you're doing your blocking, your movement. They're doing their lines, they're doing their blocking, their movement, and yet a third thing is being created that's greater than just you two or three people on the stage. And that's very exciting. I don't know what that is, and sometimes you can't always recreate it in every show and every scene,
Right.
because sometimes it moves or whatever. But it is an amazing moment to be in, and that tends to be the moments I try to go for, when I'm working with someone on camera or on stage.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that because we did Arturo Ui, and then we did Anonymous, and then I think it was American Night. And during American Night, we had a scene together where I was on a game show after having this like fever dream, when falling asleep, and it was like, oh, you're on this random game show, and like you said, sharing the space with like you and a random bear that dropped by all of a sudden as part of as part of the game show was great, and all the like I guess energy that you were giving in order to really bounce back off really like stood out. And it also helped because I've worked with actors before, and it's like it's when they don't give energy, you feel it, and then it's like really hard. It makes your job harder. But when they do give the energy, like you did, or when we work together, it makes things go so much easier and allows things to just fit in.
Oh, thank you for saying that, because and I have to admit, whenever we were doing that scene, and for the people who haven't maybe not seen American Night, first of all, too bad for you. It's a fantastic work. It was created in the local Bay Area, but it
Mm-hmm.
is over the last 12 years.
Yeah.
It's gone out, and other people have recreated it, and the whole thing is kind of a nightmare. And in the scene that we were just talking about, I am a game show host, um, and our hero, played by Richie, is basically, um, it's not like his life depends on it, but it is his life that depends on it. No, he's trying to survive and get his citizenship, and we're playing the scene, and I'm kind of Machiavellian. Or if you've seen the movie, what's that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, The Running Man,
Right.
which is a game show of life and death.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the feeling of that scene, where it's like, hey, we'll all be excited if you survive, but we'll also enjoy the moment if you don't, right? And the bear comes on, and there's bright lights and there's sound effects and applause. It's almost a very horrific
Mm-hmm.
scene, and I always feel like I have to lord it over you, and you're kind of fearful, and I always feel a little guilty about scenes like that, especially if there's too much going on that you can't
Mm-hmm.
check in with the character, excuse me, with the actor after the scene to say, "Are we good?" Right? It wasn't. There was nothing personal, um, but hopefully and that goes back to the point that you initially brought up, like what do I do, or uh, you do have to step outside of yourself, um, and what you would normally do as a human being. Because
Right.
me, I would try to help someone, or at least try to understand them. In that scene, that character, the game show host, is not that. He's completely plastic,
Mm-hmm.
and he stands above the characters, and it's his show, and his job is to entertain the viewers and to keep the viewers engaged, and everyone else is just a prop.
Yep.
It's If you know that show, what, Fantasy Island, where Mr. Rourke, he kind of stands back from the characters. It's not the same character. Mr. Rourke does stand back from the characters and say, "Look, these are your choices, and you must make them, but the results are absolute."
Right.
And then he recedes and makes he's not Machiavellian, um, but he does have that power that uh, he steps back from the characters. He's not going to help too much.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that
And
was a fun project. I got to do like 5 cameo.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
you had that. You had the sheriff, which will probably
sexy
segue.
sheriff, sexy
Yeah.
sheriff Arpaio. It's
Uh-huh.
uh,
That was a trip. Like, and that was the first time that I actually had to like commit hard to learning my lines, and then because our director, who we both have history with, I used to have a bad habit of not learning them, and then she got on my case. But this was the time I was like, I need to learn them, and then that's about it. And then I think maybe a month into it, I showed up with all my lines, and they were just edgy. They were just at the edge of like learning all of them, so they were a little rocky. But she's like, "Yep, this works," and I think that also shows that it's important for us to essentially have our p's and q's together. And so, like, normally you learn your lines pretty fast.
oh, I would love to say that I learned my lines pretty fast all the time. Um, to that subject, going back to Arturo Ui, when I was cast in that part, I quickly realized that the line load was intense. Um, and I felt for you in um, your production, because you had a similar line load. Arturo Ui was in iambic pentameter the entire play.
Right.
Um, I had 12 monologues in 12 scenes out of a 16 scene play. Right?
Yeah.
So, and I was just, I would walk off stage into darkness and walk back on sometimes, less than 15 seconds later,
Hmm.
next scene. There's no resting time. It was very different from any other play that I've done. And I was learning lines up until even the night before, because you do your lines, you memorize big chunks, and then the blocking comes in. So as the blocking comes in, lines go out of your head,
Hmm.
and then you have to retrain your brain to do the lines with the blocking.
Right.
Um, but you really do, and I would, maybe it's just my personality. I think there's a big difference between, say, a and saying the word the.
Hmm.
So in your mind, you think, oh, the line is a car. And then you look at the script, no, it's the car. Now you might be thinking, what's the big difference? But if you start playing that game like it doesn't really matter, it gets into problems because unless the author was a chatbot, it really does make a difference. The articles, the words that are used, other people are depending on them. The audience is depending on them. Important plot points are put into those lines so that not only the main story can carry, other ideas can latch onto it that brings a richer subtext. So Arturo, excuse me, not Arturo Ui, but the play in which you were the primary character,
Mm-hmm.
American Night, about American citizenship and our, it's almost like a caste system, and it's not, America's not the only country that has that problem. We see even today as we're speaking, there's been unrest in Paris for the last 3 nights because of a informal caste system that they have from their colonial days. It's still with them, right? It's still a problem. And the dialogue and the story and the plot line, that all works together to bring that out so that people coming to this play, they've only been with it for 2 hours. We've been with it maybe for months by then, telling the story.
Right.
So it is important to learn your lines. In a professional show, you have your lines and your songs memorized by the beginning of rehearsal. In less formal areas, it's sometimes allowed to have your lines memorized by the middle of the rehearsal period. So in a 6 to 12-week rehearsal, depending on the show, you still have to do it, and you want to do it, right? It helps you so that you can focus on the other business of acting. It helps your castmates, your scene mates, in a scene on camera, which is much tighter than theater in many ways. In some ways, camera moves have been timed for where you are in the line, and other people working around the camera have also aligned other things, the movement of props, getting props out of the way, getting cords out of the way, getting light reflectors in, or whatever. And you might just have 5 sentences or a paragraph, but it's all choreographed so that the director shooting a film or a scene can start with the beginning of your lines and end up with the image at the end. So you want to choreograph all that without looking like it's choreographed. It has to come out. It has to flow naturally.
Right. And speaking of musicals, one of the you have experience in both acting, music, singing, and dance. And one of the shows that I know you did with City College was Chicago.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fun show. I mean, what guy would not want to play Billy Flynn in Chicago? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's the ultimate guy on stage role, right? Um, yeah,
I had.
that was a magic moment. I still think back to those days, standing on the steps that we built
Mm-hmm.
for the entrance. I mean, I would use it for my entrance, and I would stand behind. Actually, I was standing behind a dancer that I had personally recruited for that show. She was not part of City College. She actually ran her own musical theater group for teens and young people in the city of San Francisco. It has the very handy name of the Young People's Teen Musical Theater Company.
Nice.
And she directs she does musicals all year long, like 4 or 5 musicals. And because it was Chicago, because the dancing choreography is based on Bob Fosse, and she was such a fan, I knew she knew. So I called her. I said, "Hey, do you know anyone that could be a fangirl for this production?" And she got really quiet. And I realized that she was really listening. And then she said, "Well, I think I might want to do it myself." And I
Okay.
said, Nicola, I would love it if you would do it because if you do it, Charlotte will do it. Charlotte being my wife,
Right.
and she's a dancer by training as well. And so, which is great because then you have two awesome dancers to kind of, uh, in any scene, you always want your solid people to hold down the scene
Right.
so that other people who might be either newer or weaker or developing as an actor or performer or dancer can kind of fill in and keep their eye trained on the ones that are really, not that they don't know the choreography, but extremely trained people. They are people to watch and learn from,
Right.
and they bring a presence without smothering other people, and audiences like that, and directors like that, and other
Yeah.
performers like that because it just makes everything easier.
Yeah, I agree. And like I bring up Chicago because of all the musicals that I saw at City College while I was still attending there and working on developing my skills as an actor, that was my favorite. Like I had so much fun seeing that. And at the time, I never really was the type to go to musicals, but I was like, I'm part of the community. Why not? Deborah Shaw being the one who made, usually did the musicals also. But seeing this, I had so much fun. And one of the things I wanted to ask was, going forward, like how has your experience with being able to do musicals, not just act, but being able to do all these things, how has it contributed to other projects that you have done, whether they be the last audiobook we did, or the last audio drama we did, or any other thing that you're currently working on or have worked on?
Well, I always think, I mean, experience is the best teacher for anything. And it's even good to try things that you're maybe not going to do forever or you're not going to like, right? Because then you know why you don't like it, right? So I think I heard in an interview of an actor the other day, and he said he loves acting, but he doesn't like the business of acting, going to auditions and work, doing all of that stuff, which I thought was which is fair. He knows what he likes about acting. He knows what he doesn't like. Um, I love knowing stuff about stuff. When I started acting, there I am in acting class, and you can't know everything, but
Right.
when I was sitting in one of the acting classes, I could hear the music students down the hall, and sometimes you pass by and you hear them singing. And it occurred to me, there's so many things to learn about acting. Actually, let's put a pin in this because I remind me about before I took acting lessons. Remind me to tell you that story.
All right.
So I was sitting there and thinking, diction is very important. Accents, everyone likes doing accents, but you can, watch YouTube and watch movies and learn. Everyone knows to do that. But diction is the beginning because if they can't hear you, they stop listening. If you're too hard to understand, they stop listening. And, go ask George Lucas. He says that he writes about sound,
Mm-hmm.
that half the movie is sound. And if the sounds aren't interesting, people aren't paying attention.
Right.
Um, so even though I only had like one or two acting classes at the time, I decided, you know what, I'm going to take singing lessons. I'll just take one semester or 2 semesters of singing lessons just to get some diction down. And then once I was in the world of singing, boy, do they talk about breathing and articulation and the muscles that you never see in your body working, but now you have to use them and train them. My first vocal instructor said, you are a vocal athlete. This was her opening, right, to teaching people how to sing. You wouldn't expect to run a marathon tomorrow starting today, so don't expect to be a world-class singer just by starting today. So then I'm in singing classes. And then the singing instructor, especially Miss Judy Hubble, now retired, she would bring her former students who were now actors at ACT or teaching at ACT or teaching at other colleges. And she would bring them in not just as singers, but also as actors to
Right.
teach singers how to act while performing a song.
Okay.
Because it's that mental game of telling a story in a song that sells the song, if you know that phrase. So now that I was actually in singing lessons, you start hearing about musicals and musical auditions. So I thought, oh, I'll try that, right? Pretty soon, I do one musical, then I do the next musical. I'm like, oh my God, this is what I've become, a musical person. Um, you know, so and of course, this was all in support. I mean, the acting lessons in the beginning, taking acting lessons and performing in theater and on stage, was in support of commercial acting. That's why I got into the business in 2011, 2012.
Right.
I wanted to just be on camera. And, I did a couple of industrials, which are like commercials, but the public never sees them. They're just used in-house at a company or an organization. And then I got one big job, big for me. It was a 2-day shoot for Intel.
Right.
Intel does lots of commercials and long format commercials and industrials showing off their products. And it's a way also trying to attract talent to write for them, to do coding for them. And in a particular role, I was supposed to be a teacher. And I was on set. It was my first really big job. I mean, there had to be 40 people in the crew. There were 30 other actors, all kids, because they're the students. It was just teeming with people as far as I was concerned. All of us crammed into a room. There was special effects guys because it was a classroom of the future, and I'm supposed to memorize this choreography for this screen that doesn't exist. But I have to hit all the marks. There's tiny little pencil marks on the wall. I'm supposed to wave my arm this way and then look like I'm scrolling through. And it's supposed to be a 40-foot wall screen, right? But all I have is a blank wall. And I'm supposed to talk to the students like I'm a teacher, like I've been doing this all day, all year long for years. And the students are wrapped with attention. And I think I'm doing a terrible job. In fact, I'm sure I'm doing a terrible job. I'm like, they'll set up the camera, we'll do a rehearsal, and then we'll do 5 takes of basically the same thing. And then I'll say, okay, hold that. Now we're going to do it from this angle. We'll do it this way. Now I want you to do this. Okay, do what you're doing, but faster, which is kind of like George Lucas's famous way of directing. Yes, the same thing, but faster, better. And so, we did that like 5 or 6 times. And so now 2.5 hours have gone by. And I'm still going strong, but inside I'm dying. I'm like, I'm terrible at this. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And whenever the director would ask for something, like he maybe hold the scene and say, wave someone over, like a boom or a grip or someone for lighting or the DP, and say, hey, can we do something? Can we get this? Can we try to have that? And I would notice how they would respond to him. They would always say, yes, I can do that for you. But I can also do this if you want a little more of this, or I can do that if you want a little more of that. So you have a choice or a range. And then he would select something. And I saw that happen several times. And then I realized that's my job. As an actor, I'm here today all on gumption, like I'll act, but I didn't have any of the skills, tools, or abilities to really adjust my performance. I mean, I could go faster, I could go slower, I could go more emotional, bigger, so minor adjustments, but I didn't really have any experience with that. And I thought that's where acting lessons come in. So as soon, then I had to squeeze out of the room. The director said, hey, you're good for now. Why don't you go to the green room? And I was absolutely certain that they were going to fire me. I'm like, I don't know. That's why he's calling the scene. And I have to squeeze by him to get out of this room because we're so packed with tables and chairs and people.
Right.
As I pass him, he looks at me and he gives me a thumbs up and says, great job. I knew I picked the right teacher. And then I thought, oh my God, I'm in the world of acting. and that from then on, because that was the hardest part of the shoot, the special effects. But
right.
From then on, I was on cloud 9, having fun, working with the kids. Sometimes the crew would be busy doing something for hours, and I would take the kids. I'm like, hey guys, let's go take some class pictures. So I made up like a little placard, and we went out to the back steps and we took pictures like we were a real class. And I have it on some phone somewhere, but that was and that's why I started taking acting lessons based on that shoot, and just based on the fact that, and this is good for any actor at any time, to I don't want to say notice your shortcomings. Everyone's going to have shortcomings, but to notice where there could be development, if only for your own sense of being able to be relaxed on stage or in a scene or working with another actor.
Right.
What would have you be more relaxed? What skills would be useful in that moment? You're not going to be able to do everything, but maybe you could take on the biggest things and just attack it.
Yeah, definitely. And for those who are curious about the HP commercial, we can link it in the description in the video. But speaking of that, and a lot of actors go through this, whether they're doing voice or what have you, and it's like they're in, especially when they're new to it, they're in the project, they're there, and they're like in the actual actively, they're in between takes or something. They're wondering like, is this working? Is it not working? What do I do? And then they find out that, oh, this is perfect. This is why you're cast. And like your director had said, stuff. We knew we picked the right teacher. And I remember seeing that. I was like, wow. I don't think there was any audio or any dialogue going,
Yeah.
but everything people were doing on the screen was being communicated just perfectly. Like, this is how this works. You even need people to start talking for it. And it was because of the communication, which is the same thing whether you're doing voice acting. Can you communicate?
Mm-hmm.
And stuff. And I think that was really good. So yeah, I'd agree with your director too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was that video called? It's I think the script is called A Day in the Life, but um we'll put it in the link. I'll dig it up. It's an Intel, um, a bridge to the future. I think that's what it's called by Intel. Still out there. People are still using it, referencing it. It's like a 3 minute long video.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's very uplifting
That's good. Yep.
as far as teaching goes.
We'll definitely link it. So with that being said, you just mentioned classes, which what I've seen, especially after COVID and the pandemic, that people are now trying to jump into voiceover, but they want to skip classes. And we're not talking people who already have had the time to do classes. We're talking like fresh out the gate new people. They want to jump ahead of that. What did classes do for you to really solidify that acting ability that a lot of us have already come to recognize?
Well, classes help you distinguish the trees from the forest, right? Um, just as I am that experience thinking that I was failing on camera because I couldn't adjust my performance more than do more, do less, act more, act less, act faster, go slower, whatever. Um, Getting into acting classes has always been about, what skills do I not have? Is it about assessing the character? Is it about breaking down the story, going through the script, picking out? I mean, and you know it when you see it. When you see, I don't want to say poor actors. When you see actors perhaps that could benefit from some development, you see that they're maybe acting on stage, maybe they have their lines memorized, but they're just saying words,
Right.
and it's painful. It's
Mm-hmm.
painful for the audience, much less everyone else who have to hear it over and over, that they're saying words that they literally do not understand or don't care
Right.
to understand. Not that you have to, you know, beat up on the dialogue. How shall I compare thee to a summer's day? But you do want to have at least some feeling for it. So we talked a little bit before about plot points. If you drop a line or an idea or a thought, then the plot sometimes goes off track. It's like, I'm trying to think of something, a good example, and nothing comes to mind at the moment. But so you can't do that. On the other hand, you can't just say words without any feeling.
Right.
So when I actually first started acting, I tried doing this. I would take my script, I would do the script breakdown and try to think of an emotion that carries the line. But and that's a good place to start. But when you're actually talking to people or listening to people, they don't have the same emotion throughout the whole sentence.
Right.
Because first of all, example, if they're telling a joke, um, they might they'll change the speed and meter. Like someone was just telling me a story the other day about trying to get someone out of a car or something like that didn't belong to him. So he said, so I put on my gloves and I walked out over there. And I just grabbed him. I grabbed him. I yanked him out of the car. I said, get the hell out of here, or something to that effect. And you can hear in the storytelling that there's a pace that goes along that he sustains to put the listener on kind of on edge, on alert. And then there's the definitive action, and then there's the release. And another thing that happens when people are telling a story or talking in a conversation is that they have a new idea right in the middle.
Right.
They say, well, I really should have spoken to you earlier. Actually, why didn't I tell you the day before? Oh my God, I saw you the day before. I should have told you that.
Yeah.
Or that realization. And being able to work with your script to pick out the moments where the character might have new thoughts, even if you don't say them, right? Even if you don't say words that are indicate, oh, I just had a new idea, but you can say it as if you had a new idea, as if you just realized that it was in my house all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a lot of fun. Now, you can overdo that, and the director can come to you, and that's what the director's for. Hey, dial it back.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want a director, and we've probably all had directors that have done this, that just give you a line reading, like, no, read the line like this. For whatever reason, maybe that's their style, or maybe they want maybe you're there to support the other character and they don't want you to pull too much, or maybe it's just too much.
Right.
And that's okay too. Depends on the production. Yeah, depends
Yeah,
on the production.
definitely. And it's really important that we're touching on the subject of subtext, especially when we're talking about voice actors who all of the thing having to do, like on theater, we have our whole body and instrument to use. Same thing for camera, but in voice, we just have our voice to communicate these stories and do that storytelling. And like you said, if it just sounds like the person doesn't either care or they're just saying words, that's not going to help anything, and it's painful to watch, honestly. like you
Yeah,
mentioned. So it's to understand that subtext that we're trying to communicate. And I totally remember being taught on subtext from it was my teacher at the time, Gloria Weinstock, and it was like subtext is extremely important for trying to get these stories going and get the communication going, and
mm-hmm.
and then it doubles down even more in the voiceover industry at this point.
Well, yes, and I get where. I mean, I'm an eager beaver too. There's things that I want to do, and I just want to start doing it, right? Um, I've been wanting to create a series of short videos just based on sites around San Francisco connected to um, stories of Old Town San Francisco, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just because whenever I'm with human beings, driving in a car or walking by, I will say, hey, this building, and I'll tell them a little story about this building.
Right.
And I'll connect it to, and I'm realizing, it would have a lot more reach if I did a short video about it. Oh gosh, I forgot where I was going with this. But for the beginning, I know So yeah, that's something that I would really like to do. And I think, well, I should plan it all out. But the side of me also says, just go do them and put them out there and then adjust. So
Yeah.
there's success for both of those strategies. Um, but for a beginner actor or a beginner voice actor, there's still a lot of things that ought to be accomplished. Now, taking lessons is not going to take away your personality. That's not what anyone's talking about.
Right.
But it is about being clear on mic, or being clear on camera, or being clear on stage, um, knowing how to use the power of your voice, um, because the voice is so important.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important. When you hear a great actor with a great voice, think Patrick Stewart, think Ian McKellen, think who else is great? Um, you know, and then there are other actors who are not quite at that level, but they're
Right.
great actors. But they know how to use their voice and their vocal characteristics
Right.
to get something across, too. And they know how to change the moods of their voice. Um, so, like, even for me, one thing that I would love to train in, is learn learn how to sound younger. And I don't mean like a little kid younger. I mean, someone that's just, younger, just kind of a little earlier in life, um, eager to get things done, eager to learn.
Right.
Um, I mean, I can bring the energy to that, but there probably are some other characteristics that would be great for a character actor to learn in order to maintain and sustain um, that characterization. Because it's another problem that actors run into, is that you can create a certain sound or a certain persona,
Mm-hmm.
but can you sustain it? Because if you're dropping in and out of it, people notice, and then people are just kind of confused. And I've seen people that care about each other. I remember one woman, she's an actress that I've worked with, actually one of the first trained actresses I worked with in something called The Dinner Detective. Are they still doing that?
I
It's
think
called The
they
Dinner
are.
Detective. I think they are. It's franchise.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun doing that. And her boyfriend was playing one of the leads, who's a detective. And he decided to play the detective with a Southern accent, um, which always seems to me to be another actor rookie move. Just generalized Southern accent. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I either pick a Southern accent or don't pick a Southern accent, but and she said this to him, and we're in
Mm-hmm.
rehearsal. We have people showing up.
Right.
She's like, if you can't sustain that, you have to drop it.
Right.
And he's like, okay. And yeah, so I think for that particular performance, he just didn't do that. He did a kind of a more country something, but it wasn't a straight Southern accent, which is fine. I mean, the character he created was a lot of fun to listen to. Um, but you have to be, if you're going to do something different, you've got to be able to sustain it, because people, especially when you're being paid for it, people
Right.
expect you to not just do one great reading once, they expect you to do one great reading 30 times
Mm-hmm.
with the same energy on the last read that you got on the first couple.
Right. Yeah. And that's also really important because, like you said, accents. Um, when people start deciding to do accents for like jobs of any kind, especially in the industry, and like you said, they're getting paid for it. If they can't deliver, it'll be a lot more than just okay, you gotta drop it. It could lead to a firing at that point, which is why
Mm.
if it's still within those building stages, it gives actors something to work on in their free time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's good. So we covered acting. We covered not just fundamentals, but things that really go build from fundamentals upwards, which are all extremely important. My question is, so you've conquered stage, you've done TV, and now you're also I think you've done voice acting as well. What is your next goals that you want that we can expect to see from you that you are slating, that you are, I guess, charting to do?
Well, actually, I want to do. I've only done like a couple of voiceover jobs. 3 years, 3.5 years, four, actually more like 4 years of classes. So I want to do a lot more voiceover.
Nice.
And I'm really eager to try the different formats of voiceover. And for the new year, which for me starts in July, I made a promise myself to do 2 more courses in voiceover, just in areas that I haven't already done. But what do I want to conquer? Um, and I would mention 2 things. Other than getting more commercial work,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I'm building my website. Because right now my acting page is like a Facebook page and an Instagram page, right?
Right. Same.
Um, but my website's being developed now, and I'm having some photos worked on to be put up on it. So there's nothing there now. But to kind of go back to where I started before I was an actor, my old boss,
Mm-hmm.
who was for over 30 years, she was producing live events. And at some time she realized, oh, Rafael's really good with his voice on the mic. I'm going to have him do the announcements. And so then I became the guy that did all the announcements for
Right.
these events that were 500, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people, whatever it was.
Nice.
Um, but I would like to get back to doing that kind of MC style work,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially for some of the theater performances that happened here in San Francisco.
Right.
Um, so that's one area that I would like to conquer, because that's a special relationship that you have with the audience and the talent that's about to do a show or doing a show. Um, Oftentimes, and I'm thinking in particular, I'll just be playing here. I'm thinking in particular of a show that I saw last summer here in San Francisco called The Empire Strips Back.
Yep.
And I don't know how this MC got the job, but he was a local boy makes good guy named Eric here from Oakland. He'd probably be a great person to invite on the show.
Thank you.
And I have his phone number. He auditioned to host the Empire Strips Back,
Mm-hmm.
and he wrote his own script to introduce the show, the numbers, all the talent, and wrap it all up in a package. And that show in San Francisco, which was supposed to run 8 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
ran for 4 months.
Ooh.
And it was packed every night, 8 shows a week. I think there's still only 7 days in a week, but somehow
Mm-hmm.
they were doing 8 shows a week. They were selling out on Tuesday nights. They were selling out on Sunday afternoon. I saw the show a dozen times, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you why in a moment, because there's a good performance story in there too about perseverance. Um, and to see this guy who didn't really know the show overly well. I mean, it's new to him too,
Right.
and he creates material that reflect him and his personality, and he welcomes the audience in. And so by the time you get to the dancers in the show, because it's basically a dance review with highly skilled live performers um, in the world of dance,
Right.
it, it's just so much fun. And he helps make it fun for you, because a lot of people, Star Wars fans show up, of course, and there's a lot of people that just know about Star Wars. They might not be a fan, but they know enough to enjoy the show, and he helps them. He helps frame the story of the show. So content creation is the next thing that I'd like to conquer. So finding shows that need an MC, and MCs sometimes are expected to create the content that
Mm-hmm.
kind of frames the show.
Right.
And seeing Eric succeed at that was inspiring to me. So that's one area. And then the other thing is content creation
Mm-hmm.
for short videos, or maybe even for podcasts around subject matters that I love.
Right.
Stories about San Francisco, stories about the gangs of boys, orphan boys in San Francisco.
Right.
Um, because that's an opportunity to create content, and
Mm-hmm.
where there's content, there can be jobs for
Yep.
you or for others.
Definitely. Yep. And definitely, and you got my support on that. on your new podcast, because we were talking about it right after we finished the audiobook, the audio drama, which we spent 3 hours recording. For those who are interested, it's Animal Farm, the audio drama from the show that happened last year at the War Memorial Atrium here in San Francisco, which will likely be posted if I get the permission to do so. But
that was quite a production.
that was whew, like I because I got brought in for that, and I hadn't done theater for like a good 4 years or since American Night, and then I got brought in for it when our director Patricia was like, "Hey, can you do this?" I was like, "I don't know. I live in a new place now, and I gotta kind of say, yeah, but can you still?" I was like, "All right, fine," and then I got to. That's where I re-met with you, and you were playing. You played multiple characters in the show, right?
Yeah, I played mostly in the stage version that we did.
Right.
We did. I was Farmer Jones,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was like the ghost of Walter Cronkite.
Right.
I was challenging the Fox News host on her integrity,
Mm-hmm.
and she fought back. And then I think I also played a dog, so, which in some ways was one of my favorite parts to do because I just
Yeah.
got to wear a GI, a old GI helmet from World
Right.
War II and wear a black leather jacket.
Yeah,
Uh,
that production was a trip, especially because like we did the play itself, and then after that there was scheduling for the audio drama, which was well, like we made it work fortunately, and it came out really well, and it
well,
was
that goes back to your point. Why train in voice acting? Why can't you just get the script and go, right?
right. Mm-hmm.
Mic, soundproof room, whatever. But the radio drama that we did, yes, it only took 3 hours to record with, people who are highly capable in recording sound, saying, hey, that worked, or we need a pickup, or we need to, do that again, which is great. But the thing is, we developed the play. The play was developed at least over a year and a half,
True.
right? It was in the workshop method, you know, and all on Zoom, oddly enough. It was all done on Zoom until we got to the actual performance. And then we came together and put on that play. And I am certain that had we not spent those many months developing the work, if we had not done that, the audio recording of it would have been, I don't even want to say it would be happening, but it just would have been there. It
Yeah.
would have been done, right? But I think, I know they're editing it right now,
Right.
but I'm so looking forward to it.
I
Really, I
I
really am.
agree. So we're good on that. We don't, yeah. But otherwise, again, thank you. Before we wrap this up, where can people find you at this time?
Um, well, right now my thing is on Instagram, so
Okay.
it's Rafael Musni on Instagram. Do I have to say anything else? Is it like at symbol Rafael Musni?
I No, I think you're good. Everyone knows how to use
Okay,
Instagram.
yeah, because I'm getting better at posting things on there.
Hmm.
And of course, when my website is finished, I'm going to post on there. Some people find me on Facebook. So if you're over 45 and Instagram might not be quite your thing, you can find me, I believe it's Rafael C. Musni
Right.
on Facebook. And I'm just going to double check that. But I, I tend to be there too. In fact, it even says actor page.
Yep.
So Rafael C. Musni, actor, voice actor, MC, something like that.
Got it. So yeah, again, thanks for putting aside time to come on, share your experience with acting, and I wish you the best down in the future. And just let me know if you need help.
No, thank you so much. And thanks for creating the space for people who are working in the world of performance for this, because I think this will be very useful for them.
Yeah.
And it's useful for me. So I can't wait to hear the episode. Woohoo!
Sounds good.